Okay. I know some people wanted to see how I created the makeup looks in Substance Designer. So this is for the two people that asked for a tutorial. So the first step of this process is finding a reference. I go into my makeup board in Pinterest and I find a look that I think I could get a lot of inspiration from. I love this makeup look. I love the green, the wing. And I thought I was going to follow this exact reference, but at the end of the day, I just ended up taking it as inspiration and taking it a little bit far. So I'm moving the Pure Ref window into a spot that I think would not bother me throughout the entire creation process. So I go ahead and lock it and begin working. As you can see here, I have a old makeup look that I was practicing on before starting. To start, I'm assuming everybody knows their way around Substance Designer, by the way. The first thing that I always like to do is creating a fill layer. I disable all the channel materials that I won't be using in the moment. So I'm just gonna keep the material, the base, the roughness, and I believe I add up height later on. So for this first material, what I'm gonna do is have like a makeup base. And this is going to be like a kind of like a darker smoky skin tone blended out in a wing. So I go ahead and add a black mask to that material, to that fill layer, and then add a paint layer under that. After I add that, I go ahead and try to find a brush that I think would work best for this, for painting. Usually it's something soft and round. Once I find that soft brush, I start painting, and I usually start from the UV view. One thing that you're gonna see me do a lot is undo, undo, use the blur effect, and copying and pasting things just for the sake of time. So here I'm just adding with the white, since I have a black mask, I'm adding the color in. If I want to remove the color, I press X and I use the black and I start deleting things. And I go and switch to the brush, the blur tool, and to those two materials like X, hitting X, which is black and white. I add a blur effect, as I mentioned before. This comes really in handy when you don't really want to spend that much time blending the strokes that you just made. So I usually use the blur tool a lot. It saves me a lot of time. Also the blending, is it the blending types? The blending mode. I change the blending modes a lot. I just am very experimental with them. I usually forget what each one of them does, so I start clicking on everything and see how that works out for me. I believe in this case I have either the multiply or something else. I'm not really sure. Once I'm done with that, I think I changed the environment here, yeah, because of the lighting. I did not like how the lighting was kind of reflecting onto the character and I couldn't really see the material, how it was looking and how it was translating into the model. So I ended up changing it and moving the lights around to see what would kind of work for me. After I'm done with that, I add a height map and I add a fill of a noise, like a fill layer, or I think it's a fill layer, something. I add some noise and I go ahead and mess around with the settings, all the parameters, and till I find something that I really like. I think I ended up going with a size of like 2000 or 1700, something like that for the noise. But here you can see me experimenting with all the parameters, and you can see that that little noise kind of adds a little bit of realism onto the shadow. So that's something you can do if you would like. I'm usually just messing around with things until I find something. I never really have like a formula to do, like a set formula for something that I usually do. I usually just play around and look at the reference and see what I want to replicate from that reference and figure out a way as I go to kind of get as close as I want, you know? All right, Once I'm happy with that, I am gonna go ahead and duplicate that material, and I'm gonna delete the paint layer, change the color, and I'm gonna add another paint layer, which here I'm gonna do some sort of graphic liner. Thing that I love to do when I'm doing like thin lines in Substance Painter, not Designer, is that I like adding like a smoothing value. You see that setting that I just pressed to stabilize the stroke, and this really helps getting a clean brush stroke. All the way through the video, you can see that I toggle that stabilized stroke setting, and it really saves me a lot of time. And here's the same principle of using black and white to delete from the mask, because we just copied and pasted that material that had a black mask on. So I'm pressing X to go to the black and delete, and I'm pressing X again to go to the white and then add some more of that material. Here I'm using the blur effect from before and just changing the parameters and softening the effect just so I can blur out the edges from this liner. And I go ahead and add another line, and this is using X and XX again, which is deleting and adding, and the stabilized stroke. I love going back and forth from the 2D view and then the 3D view. I think sometimes it's easier to do it in the 2D view, but you can have like some wrapping going on. So I usually recommend to just switch from both of them, but just know that you might have to change the brush sizes and settings, because in the 3D view is different than the 2D view unless you have, I think, 3D projection. I'm not sure if that's the case, or if I'm lying. So once I'm happy with that, I go ahead and change names. I like to keep things organized for most of the time, because if I don't, I'm gonna regret it later. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add some metallic flakes to this material. And I think I'm just adding a metallic channel and then adding the same principle that I use for the high map, adding some sort of fill and then changing the parameters and giving those little dots some some metallicness. Anyways, here you can see me mess around. I haven't done this. I haven't used Painter in a while because I was learning Designer, but it feels good to go back to the basics. It really does. Once I'm happy with that, which is usually right around the 20-minute mark, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, messing around with the same setting over and over again, I think I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate that same layer, and I'm gonna go ahead and start working on the black liner. So, I think here I was trying to add like some height to those, but I couldn't figure it out. I don't know what was going on. I think it was a little too late. Anywho, Zarini, girl, move on. Yeah, this did not work out. At all. At all. Yes, sis, go ahead and duplicate it and make it into black. We're gonna delete the paint layer all over again. Remove some of the channels that I don't want in there, like the metallicness, I think. And I'm gonna add another paint layer. And here I'm looking for another brush because I wanted something that was tapered at the end, but I couldn't figure out how to change the setting for that. Or I didn't even know if it was possible. So I just ended up sticking with the same brush. And I am using the same principle all over again of using white to add the color and then using black to remove. So here I'm stabilizing the stroke, destabilizing it. I was trying to figure out if I wanted to recreate the same look right here. You see me leaving that wing in the middle, and then I was like, nah, it's not happening. I'm just gonna keep going and I'm gonna do something different. So I am just making that line a little bit more perfect, or something that I deem is perfect for my eyes. So I just keep going back and forth, on and on and on and on and on and on again. Yeah, this process took, I think this was the longest that it took me to do this black liner, because I just kept going back and forth. But you can just keep it simple and do a little wing if you're recreating it on your own, or just go crazy and, you know, do some stuff. Also, one tip to remember is that you can always input numbers into like the brush size. Like it might tell you that it's 0.01, the smallest size it could go, but you can just be like 0.005 please, and it will give it to you. So don't be afraid to play around and try things, because sometimes it might work. And I usually am not okay with just 0.1 or 0. I don't know. I like going into a finer brush size. And I think sometimes people think, oh no, you cannot do it because it says 0.1, but you can. I think here I also messed around with the blur as well, and I kept it in a lower value. And then I went back into the green and add a little bit of more green. And then I went back to the black and added another line. And here's where things got a little bit fun, because I was like, oh my god, I'm actually loving this. Like, I'm already seeing like the makeup brands that I would use to recreate this look. And I was like, yeah, this is a vibe. It is a vibe. So I think after this point, I started really loving it and just going for it. I added more green, and then I think I added more black under. So it's fairly simple to just create fill layers, add masks, add paint layers, and then add effects and generators and things. And you can get to like a spot that you can always either disable or either build up, you know? So I think this method of just using fill layers is very easy instead of using like a paint layer, because you can't really change colors. And with the fill layer, you do have that freedom to change things later on. Like if I want that liner to be white or that green to be pink, you can always go back to it and go ahead and do it. I'm using the stabilize tool, and I'm using the back and forth with the white and the black to delete and add things. Here I changed the environment all over again. It's just, I don't know, sometimes my eyes trick me and I want to see it in a different way. Anyways, I'm adding some bottom lashes. I thought I was not going to keep these, but I ended up liking them once I had the lashes in Blender. So don't be afraid to play around. I think this is going to be the most ADHD voiceover ever, but whatever. I just want to have this in one take, honestly. I want it to feel, you know, normal. Here I am. I think I went back and played around with the blending modes again because I wanted it to be a little bit warmer and have a little bit of more body. And you can always go back when you have the fill layers. You can always go back to change the colors. You can always go back, like I rambled on about. So keep in mind that it is a good time saver, I would say. Here I'm attempting to add some flakes, and I'm just creating another fill layer and adding a mask. And then I think I go ahead and copy that liner, that black liner. I copy all of those paint layers and I paste them into this one. And then I use a fill to add some cells that would be metallic, and then that would be just on the black liner. So I pasted those, added the fill layer, and then I found a noise, the cell, not the noise, I found like the cell pattern that I think would have looked good. Changed the settings, and then went ahead and changed the blending mode onto multiply. And honestly, this was a happy accident because I did not know this could work. So, like I said before, play around. You never know what the hell you're gonna stumble upon. And I happened to stumble upon a good thing. Here I am changing the color because it's a fill layer, like I mentioned. And I think I wanted to do something like green and something that would like sparkle a little bit more, but I ended up just going for the white because I think in Blender it was gonna look the best with the lighting. So I ended up just leaving it white. Let's see, what else do I do? I think I played around a lot. I played around a lot with the settings. I think I'm losing my voice already. And here you see me trying different things to see what I would like. And I ended up sticking with the lesser noise, lesser cells, and a little bit more disorder than just them having them crammed up because I wanted the black to show too. Another thing that I did was adding highlight, and I'm just creating another fill layer. And I am painting with white with a spray brush. I thought I was gonna like the effect of the spray brush, but I think I ended up going back to the self round. And at the beginning I ended up adding a lot and had to remove. But I think just stick, honestly, just if you find one brush that you like, you see I went back to the brush I like, just stick with it, honestly, because some brushes might be a little disappointing. Any users, here I am playing around with, I don't know, I was playing around with something. All the metallicness, yeah, because I think it was looking a little bit crazy from the front when it was too metally. So I ended up just toning that down and then like keeping it very low and adding a blur to it. I think the top highlight was removed because I did not like that. Here I am going back into the other layers, see what I want to change, see what I want to add. I think I'm moving things up, see how it looks. I was just playing around with everything, duplicating things, adding height channels that I knew were not gonna work, but I was just trying to see how to make it pop out a little bit more, which I ended up not even. I ended up just changing the color into a brighter green rather than adding heights because that would look so unrealistic. Eyeshadow doesn't really have a height unless you're using like a 3D liner or something like that. Anyways, I changed the blend modes to see how it would look, but I think I ended up staying with the normal. It just looked better. Yeah, here I am changing it to a brighter green to make it pop more. And see, this is the beauty of fill layers. You can change the color anytime, but I ended up sticking with the green because I just love the green so much. Here I am enabling and disabling to see the difference. I love seeing the before and after. Honestly, it just gives me so much satisfaction. After I was done with the eye look, I went into the lips and added a little bit of a pink tint, a reddish tint to the lips. I ended up having like a very low opacity on this and not really using it in Blender because I thought it was just fighting with the eyeshadow a lot. But for the sake of showing, I guess this is fine. Added a blur effect to soften the rims and just have it more of like a natural tint, which again, blur effect saves the day. And here I am messing around with the colors, trying to see what was gonna work, what kind of look best with the look. And I think I ended up just sticking with that tint and lowering it in Blender or lowering it before I export it out. It's time to export the maps, and I selected the face and the lips because I already have all the other things imported into Blender. Here I'm using the Blender preset that they give, that Substance Painter provides, and I'm just exporting those. At the beginning, it was just exporting the base color, which I didn't understand why, but I think it was just exporting from the previous thing that I did, because on that makeup look that I had at the beginning, I just exported the base color. So I was trying to figure out which setting I had checked on, and maybe like after 5 minutes, I figured out that it had the older settings. For some reason, I don't know. I was clicking through everything trying to find out what I checked up wrong, what I checked on wrong. And let's see, where is that setting? Let's see. Include all? No, I don't want to include all. I was scrambling. I'm like, why? I was dragging the maps into it. Still couldn't figure it out. And I closed it and go back again, trying to find out what I did wrong. It says hurry up. And I had to check the preset. Now that I see it, I remember. I had to check the preset up in there too, in the front. The Blender preset, and then everything exported fine. And then I just plug those in and change some parameters. Put the displacement node. Change some of the maps to no color. I think the height and the metallicness and roughness. And then I just rendered. And that's about it for doing makeup in Substance Painter. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. Sorry for the ADHD voiceover. That's just pretty much me speaking on a regular basis, saying like 300 times a day. But anyways, I really enjoyed creating this look, and I think I would definitely use it for some character animation later on. If you enjoy this video, subscribe, hit the like button, and let me know if you want to learn how to import the models and set up the UVs. But there's so many YouTube videos on that I think it would be really irrelevant. There's a lot of people that really explain it thoroughly, and it's easy to follow. So anyways, hope you enjoyed. Bye bye.